Hello, I'm Joel.
And I'm Alex. Welcome
Welcome
to
to
the
the
Commander's
Commander's
Journey.
Journey, the place where we discuss our favorite format of Magic, Commander, from the perspective of a new player.
And an experienced one.
This journey is for new Magic players who are interested in Commander. So here we are, week two, locked in our houses. Again, hope everybody's being safe and times are weird and strange out there. So, um, yeah, stay safe. Stay with your
Celebrate
loved
the
ones.
quarantine with us. We're like a loved one.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I loved one of us,
Oh, there
but
you go. So we can enjoy us for our quarantine editions of the show.
there you go. And so, one thing, a side effect of that is we've just been building a lot of decks and having fun. I've been noticing other people in the community doing the same. And it got me thinking that when I first started playing Commander, which was a year ago now, when I first got in, one of the roadblocks was the price. It just seemed expensive to get into the game. This year's awesome because there's a bunch of new Commander precons, a bunch of cool stuff coming out. But when I didn't know anything about anything, um, it was my brother turned me on to a deck tech that was from the Commander's quarters where it was inexpensive. I didn't have to spend a ton of money, and I was able to get in quick. Of course, I upgraded it. Now it's worth 5 times what it was when I first started. But we just think that it would be really cool to start doing some of these deck techs under $100.
So this is part of our Deck Tech Under 100 series. Hopefully, we'll keep budget in mind as we go, too. And if something's really astronomical price-wise, we'll explain it as well.
Exactly. We just want to try and build some decks that are under $100. They're still a lot of fun, competitive, just very synergistic. Um, to give new players that option to have an awesome deck to play right up front. And so today we're going to talk about our deck tech is on Alela, Artful Provocateur. So for one, white, blue, black, she's a legendary creature, Fairy Warlock. She has flying, death touch, and lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0, and whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, you create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying, and she's a 2/3.
I have to say, she's a fantastic commander in her own right, and then you can see so many ways you can take this. But Joel, I noticed you took more of an artifact approach with this.
I did. I think I just took the cards I had at home. I was home brewing this, and I noticed I was doing both artifacts and enchantments. I was reading up a bunch of stuff, but then when I did the deck tech, I'm like, I want to keep it under 100. And there was some really cool artifact combos I saw some people doing online, and I'm like, I want to mimic that, and I want to add some more stuff. I want a bunch of flyers, a bunch of artifacts, and have this cool combo, and just go for it. So that's what we did.
There you go. And what I like about Alela too is even if you're more leaning one way or the other, and I think everyone naturally will, you may find yourself noticing you still keep that really critical artifact or enchantment in there, even if you're going the other direction with it, and you still get all the benefits from it pretty much as if it was the other type. So even those ones that are less critical of let's say an enchantment in Joel's case, like a Smothering Tithe, you can still fit in the deck and still have it be useful for the whole deck by itself beyond just it being an enchantment.
Yeah, so it has extra value just because she likes to have all that.
Exactly. Whether you go that direction or not with it, you still get some extra bonuses from it.
Yeah, so even though this is artifact heavy, there's still like 10 enchantments in this deck, so it's still
And that's what I'm saying. What I like about the commanders, it just fits in just nicely. No issues whatsoever. Slots right in, doesn't get looked twice at.
exactly.
So, I'm going to let Joel take the reins here. But, Joel, do you want to talk about what the main goals of the deck are?
Yeah, so I mean, like we were talking about, we could have either been artifact heavy, enchantment heavy, a mix of both. Could have gone fairy tribal, but regardless, you're gonna make a lot of flyers, and she's gonna pump your flyers. So it just makes sense. And a lot of people do play her like this. Is the goal of this deck is just to fly over everybody's head, swing in, kill your opponents.
Exactly. And do you have any good cards that really help pump up your flyers, you'd say, as a notable card?
Yeah, so Alela herself, of course, gives everybody all the flyers +1/+0. I like the fact that it says flyers; it doesn't just say fairies. So going with artifacts, There's other kinds of flying artifacts we can add in there. One of the cards that came with the brawl deck with her in it is Im- I think I'm saying this right. Empyrean Eagle. It's one, a white and a blue for a creature bird spirit that's got flying. It's a 2/3, and it says other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. And another card that also pumped all the flyers is Favorable Winds. It's one in a blue for an enchantment that creatures you control flying get +1/+1. So when this one drops, it also gives you that fairy, and then it also pumps your creatures. So if you had all three of these out at the same time, you're talking about pumping all your flyers by +3/+2. So
Uh,
it's pretty good.
exactly, and that sounds like a powerful way to win just on its own. Now, having a bunch of 3/3s that are really easy to make really will make it hard to deal with. I know too, Joel, you were pretty excited. You talked about it already a little bit, but you added a good combo in there, a set of combos. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so the combo in this deck is basically is all artifacts, and what you want to do is you want to get a an artifact like Traxos Scourge of Krug. So it's 4 generic mana for a legendary artifact creature. It's got trample and Traxos Scourge of Krug enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap during your untap step. But whenever you cast a historic spell, so any artifact comes in, you untap Traxos. It's a 7/7. So the key wording on this is whenever you cast a historic spell or an artifact spell, if you cast that, it untaps Traxos. And then what you do is you need to get there's a card, there's a few cards, but one of them is Banishing Knack. It's an instant for 1 blue. Until end of turn, target creature gains tap, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So what you want to do is you want to get Banishing Knack. You want to play that um, on your um, on your Traxos, and then you want to just continually cast a zero cost artifact like Mimnite or Tormod's Crypt or a few others in here. And then what that's going to do is each time you do that, you're going to untap Traxos, and then you're gonna every time that zero artifact comes in, and then you're just gonna continue to do that. It's gonna loop and loop and loop, and you're gonna make a ton of fairies because every time an artifact enters the battlefield with your commander out, you're gonna be making fairies. So you could just make an infinite amount of fairies at that point. But then another thing we were talking about is now you got all these fairies out there. You got all these flyers. You need a way to give them haste, or you got to wait a whole turn. And in Commander, that could be a long time. So we added Crashing Drawbridge, which is 2 generic for an artifact creature wall with Defender, and you tap it. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. It's a 0/4. So that way you can utilize that and just use all those fairies you have just to knock somebody off.
I like Crashing Drawbridge. You know, this card I didn't give enough credit when it came out. I've heard a couple people on the more niche ends talk about it. It's actually pretty useful, and especially in budget. But also, sometimes you just got to get haste, and there's not too many artifacts that give hastes that aren't like in red. So all of a sudden, we have an Esper deck that we need to give haste to everything. This is a fantastic way to do it, and it's an artifact on top of it, so you get all those bonuses as well.
Exactly. And that got me thinking when we were doing that, or when we were talking about getting haste, is I added another card in there, Mirror Maid, for 1 a blue and its enchantment. You can have Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. So if somebody else in other colors has an enchantment that gives haste, you can use Mirror Maid to copy that, and you're giving all your creatures haste. So just a few ways you can get that done in these
So
colors.
I'm about to say, especially when we're talking about budget, a lot of those copy effects go a long way, and you can grab something like a Door of Destinies to bump off all your fairies, or some other thing that the card itself might have been a little too expensive for their $100 budget version, but all of a sudden you're really able to, throw something in there and really start pounding out, like something like a microsynth lattice, sorry, that
Hmm.
turns everything into artifacts. All of a sudden that gets really scary in the deck, and you're going to be in a situation there where you'll get all these benefits from it, and it gets like a $20 card. And of course, we couldn't fit that in a budget version of the deck. But if you were to copy it with Mirror Maid, then all of a sudden, that's not such a big deal anymore.
Exactly. And it's just it's fun. I don't play a lot of decks with combos, and this is one of the first ones I've been playing. And what's fun about it is you have these certain pieces you're looking for. Um, and this thing leans heavy in the artifact direction. And you basically need some of these creatures that untap whenever artifact comes in, and then you need your instant that basically gives it so it can tap, and those zero cost artifacts. But what's cool is there's a lot of one cost artifacts and two cost artifacts in here that, because of some cost reducers we'll talk about a little bit later, they in essence become zero cost artifacts that you can utilize in the same way. So that's kind of fun too. And then we're also running a few tutors so that we can also go and get those combo pieces when we need to, or have a higher chance of getting them out on the board.
I'm about to say, and I was noticing too, Joel. That's not the only win condition with us. You have some other things that if that quite doesn't go to plan, you have some other solutions you can throw in there as well.
Yeah, so even with the combo just makes an infinite amount of fairies to swing in, but the whole win con is still the same with just trying to take out players, right, by swinging in on people.
Hmm.
So I included cards like Rally of Wings for 1 and a white. It's an instant. You untap all creatures you control, and then creatures you control flying get +2/+2 until end of turn. So starting a combat, pump everything up by +2/+2. I mean, if you got enough fairies out there, you're swinging in over somebody, you could take out a player like that. Um, I think another one I had, let me look through here real quick. Oh, where did that card go?
Intangible
Intangible
virtue.
Virtue.
It's an enchantment.
Yes, there it is up there. Intangible Virtue is 1 and a white. And I think this one also came with the. Did this come? It came with a different deck. I'm sorry, I had this in a different Commander Precon, but it's 1 and a white for an enchantment. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. So that gives all of your fairies +1/+1. Plus, there's ways to make a bunch of Thopters in this deck too. So it gives all of them +1/+1 and vigilance. So that's a good way. And then once you pump all those up and you swing in and take somebody out, then you want to play a card like, let me find that card here, Time Sieve. I lost that card. Where is it?
That one's an artifact.
Excuse me, I need to drink some water. It's a blue and a black for an artifact. It's tap, sacrifice 5 artifacts, and take an extra turn after this one. And this thing could be scary because you could have just used Rally of Wings on somebody, and then you use Time Sieve. You might have taken one player out, and then you can you take all those same fairies and utilize them again if you have a way to untap them. Actually, they untap automatically because you're taking another turn. They go to untapped step, and then you could take a second player out that same turn. So that could be a really cool way to take some people out of the game.
And I noticed too, this goes really well with treasure tokens and as well as all the Thopters and stuff you'll be creating. So Shimmer Dragon is 4 blue and a blue for a creature dragon. It is flying as long as you control 4 or more artifacts. Shimmer Dragon has hexproof, already got value there. And then tap 2 untapped artifacts you control and draw a card. It's got a nice little draw engine there. And I believe that one came with the Brawl deck that Alela was in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that really goes well with it is the Wayne Way. You'll be making a lot of treasure tokens, and that's Smothering Tithe. It's 3 and a white for an enchantment that says uh, whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you create a colorless treasure artifact token that can tap, sacrifice it, and add 1 mana of any color, which is a scary combo right there.
Yeah, I accidentally ran into this when I was playing. Well, kind of accidentally. When I had both Smothering Tithe and Shimmer Dragon on the battlefield at the same time, and realized with Shimmer Dragon and Smothering Tithe, all those treasures, instead of using them for mana, I can use them for card draw. It was an awesome amount of synergy. And then on top of it, with the Layla, every time an artifact's created, if a Layla's there, well, it doesn't work because it says whenever you cast an artifact, so it doesn't. But it's still it's nasty as far as drawing a lot of cards with Shimmer Dragon.
There you go. And I noticed too, you have a lot of rocks in the deck as well. And so your mana sources instead of traditional ramp for the most part.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for this, right? I mean, since we're
Absolutely. Yeah.
leaning in the artifact direction, so add as many good mono rocks in here as you can. Obviously, a soul ring. We add like a mind stone. We add a Thran dynamo. Another really cool one, though, I think that it is really awesome for this kind of does two things: is ever-flowing chalice. So ever-flowing chalice is a zero-cost artifact. It's got multi-kicker, so for two, you may pay an additional two any number of times as you cast a spell. Everflowing Chalice enters the battlefield with charge counter on it for each time it was kicked. And then you tap it to add a colorless for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice. So you could just pay two, and this artifact could just tap for one. And it's already a good, simple rock. Or you can put a bunch more into it and make it tap for more if you have the time. Or if you didn't get this early game, if you got it later game, it's a zero cost artifact, so it can fit inside your combo. So it kind of does two things at once. It's kind of cool, or has more uses.
And I noticed too, you skipped over Soul Ring, but Soul Ring is a zero mana artifact too in your infinite combo as well, because you can tap it as well. You get two colorless, and of course, then you bounce it back to your hand, then you can use that two colorless to play the Soul Ring again, and all of a sudden you're making infinite mana that way too of colorless mana.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize that. So you
Yeah.
get, so you're making infinite mana, and at the same time you're making a bunch of infinite
Well,
fairies.
exactly. If you only need one every time to cast it over and over again, it makes two mana by itself. You can like the zero cost artifacts. You can use it to both go infinite and then also to have infinite mana. So you got every angle with the Soul Ring, and Soul Ring becomes one of your main Wink editions at that point.
That's crazy. No, you know, with some of these, once you start putting cards together, sometimes synergistically, just because they work, you run into these types of things.
That's not
Excuse
even
me.
counting a cost reducer that in theory, once you show the infinite loop, hopefully everyone will let you just do it. But you can cost reduction, other things can be included in that. All of a sudden, that really amp up a bit, turn the sort
Yeah,
of rocks into it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you have a cost reduction artifact, you can choose something like the Mind Stone or something. Not
Hmm.
Mind's Eye, but Mind Stone, which is just a simple artifact. Let me quickly bring it up. There it is. It costs two, and it's tap and add colorless, or for one to tap, you sacrifice to draw a card. But in this scenario, if it costs one less and you can tap to add mana, you can go infinite with that alone too. It doesn't even need to be, down to zero mana cost. You have all these rocks eventually, if you can reduce the cost by one, will allow themselves to infinite out as well.
Which is great because I got a bunch of ways to reduce cost in this deck. So if you look at a card like Helm of the Awakening, for two, it's an artifact that says all spells cost one generic mana less to play. So that just makes all spells one generic mana less to play, which is just powerful and awesome, and especially in this deck. And then Ugin the Ineffable for six generic mana. It's a legendary planeswalker, and its static text is what you're really looking at. Is colorless spells you cast cost two less to cast. So all your artifacts are going to cost two less. We also have Ethereum Sculptor and Chief Engineer, which I believe all do the same thing. Ethereum Sculptor is one in a blue. Artifact creature, artifact spells you cost one less to cast. And Chief Engineers for two artifact spells you cast have convoke, so it's a little different, but you can use. But it's also in a way it's cost reduction. But there's just really good ways to get these pieces out, and those are on. I didn't add those. Well, no, I didn't add all those cost reducers into my ramp section. So I have 10 rocks, but I think Ugin, Ethereum Sculptor, and Chief Engineer are just in the deck. So there's really kind of 13 ways to get some cost reduction or some ramp going.
That's perfect too, and that is the biggest issue with this color combination of white, blue, and black. Is it really struggles with that ramp, and all of a sudden you can fix it pretty well with your rocks, and all of a sudden you're getting all these bonuses from playing rocks and all these cost reduction things. You can really go to town and might and not have it be a weakness at all.
Exactly. So I mean, of course, we needed to focus on ramp and use a lot of artifacts in that way. But we also needed to worry a bit about card draw too, because on top of just having tutors to go get your combo pieces, you need enough card draw on the deck to also be looking for all those pieces you need.
So I know, Joel, you had a few you wanted to specifically go over, and it's a lot of them synergize real well. But one of the ones that is less of a synergy and more of a hey, gets this other really awesome effect, but really also helps out the deck as well with that little bit of synergy is Narset. Narset, Parter Veils. It's the new one from War of
Hmm.
the Spark. Is one blue and a blue for Legendary Planeswalker Narset. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn, so you get that nice little extra bonus, really slow other people down. But her -2, look at the top four cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them, put into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of the library in any order. 5 loyalty. That works out fantastically for the deck. You know, that's in, we're talking enchantments and we're talking artifacts right there that get that benefit.
Yeah, so it just makes Narset that much better for getting stuff and you can do it at least twice. I mean, we don't really have a lot of ways to proliferate her, but you can just for 3 dig 4 cards twice and slow other people down.
Yes. I mean, she can just stay out there once it's at that point, and just that static ability on it really will mess up your opponents and probably make someone at least attack it, if not just take her out entirely.
Exactly. It's really good. And I don't mind having some cards like that where it's really good value, but if somebody else uses their single target removal on it, it doesn't bother me as much because they might be ignoring the fact that I have my combo pieces going out, you know? Like
Yeah.
they might not attack Traxos Scourge of Krug because they're worried about Narset, you know?
Well, Narset's much more frustrating to whatever the opponent's doing, and then it allows maybe your infinite combo to go a little bit under the radar.
Another good card is Mentor of the Meek. It's 2 and a white for a creature human soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card, and it's a 2/2. So whenever you're making your fairies or your thopters, you're going to be able to pay 1 and draw a card. There's also, a lot of inexpensive some artifact creatures that this will work with. So there's a bunch of ways to get card draw with this. However, just take note that if you are pumping up your creatures beyond power 2, then if it's power 3 or more, you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to utilize Mentor of the
It'll
Meek.
work
But
with exactly with Alela being out, but if you try to add an additional pump on top of it, which the deck's going to want to do, and that's fine if it doesn't, it just will be a little bit of a non-duo with Mentor, where Mentor is better if you just have Alela out or have another pump spell in your fairies as well.
And another, I think one of the last really great card draw spells we want to talk about in this one, it does kind of everything that the deck wants to do, is Faerie Formation. It's a 4 and a blue for a creature fairy with flying, and then you pay 3 and a blue to create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying, and you draw a card, and it's a five
Yeah,
four.
and I think this one's interesting. A,
So
it came in the deck with Tulane, which I think is odd because it works so well with us. Of course, creating more fairies, and then also getting that card draw in. But you know, I really like that fairy formation. It's a creature. It gives you the necessary type, and it does have that flying rider with a decent big body on it, where you can become basically a win condition as well as a card draw engine.
exactly. And one other last card we didn't really talk about before the show, Alex, but I think is really good. It's good to have a card that kind of also does what it's like having a second commander out,
Hmm.
right? It kind of does what your commander does too, because you're trying to keep everything synergistic. Is Sai, Master of Thopters for 2 and a blue. It's a legendary creature, human artificer. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. And then for 1 and a blue, you can sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card, and it's a 1/4. So it's very similar, where it's making flyers and it gives you a way to draw cards right off of it. So if somebody keeps removing your commander over and over again, you have another card that kind of can play as your lieutenant or your
Yeah, there you go.
your sergeant, something like that. Yeah. So anyway, Alex and I are stoked to be doing this every week, and hope you guys are enjoying our shows, our deck techs. Again, stay safe. And with these under 100 episodes, we just want to this to be a gateway for new players to come into the format, because I know we don't want cost to keep you back. You want to have a really awesome deck to take to your LGS or to play with your friends for under $100. And this is one of them, and hopefully we can bring you a bunch more.
Exactly. Hopefully, this will be a reoccurring thing, and if everyone likes it, we'll definitely do more of it. So please let us know if you're interested in the over under 100, or just prefer, having any number be there, just whatever makes the deck the best it can be. So let us know.
Awesome. Everybody stay safe and have a great day.
See ya.